Hello and welcome back to Beckler Guitars and Repair, and today I've got my TEMU Greeny guitar. So I did a video on this a while back. I bought a Greeny from TEMU and we went through the whole thing and did a review on it. It ended up being a pretty good guitar. The bones and everything were pretty good. It's made of, like, you know, a nice piece of mahogany. It's got an actual thick maple cap. It's got a really nice thick neck that I really liked. And overall, the guitar was quite good. The pickup sounded good. There wasn't a whole lot to complain about. But at the end of the day, even though it's good for the price paid for it, it doesn't really compare to like a higher end Gibson or custom shop guitar or anything else like that. There's a couple things holding it back. The pickups could be better. The hardware's cheap. The electronics are cheap. It needs a setup. There's a couple other things we could do to improve this guitar. So today I want to do a complete overhaul of this guitar. I want to replace all the weak components on it and try to make it the best guitar as possible. I'm going to give it a fret level. I'm going to get it a really good setup. I'm going to wire in new pickups and replace a bunch of things on it. I'm also going to gloss up the top, maybe work on the relicing job a little bit. Basically a complete upgrade of this guitar. And at the end of all that, I want to compare it to my Les Paul Reissue, my custom shop, and see how they stack up against each other. I just really want to see how far you can take something like this that has, you know, decent bones. How good can it really be if you spend some money, some time, and some effort on it? And even after all that, will it compare to something like a custom shop? Let's check it out. So this is what we're going to do the comparison against. This is my R8 custom shop, and it's a great guitar. I even upgraded the pickups on this to throwbacks. So this thing is like one of the best guitars I've ever played. I have done work on it too. I've set it up to my perfect preference, and I've got really nice pickups in here. And I really like the neck on this guitar. It's super thick. The neck on this guitar is actually comparable. Like they're both really chunky necks, which I like, and they're both about like the same weight. I want to see if I can get this guitar on the level of this guitar, and if that is possible, how much work is it going to take? So I'm going to go ahead and show you all the parts that I'm going to be using to upgrade this guitar, and kind of a rough idea what I'm going to be doing. Then we're going to go through it, and then these guitars are going to go head to head against each other. Okay, so this Greeny ended up being quite a decent guitar for sure. It's got a nice piece of mahogany for the body. It's got a thick maple cap. You know, there's quite a bit of movement in the maple cap too. There's a lot of flame maple, and that's a full thick cap of that, which is crazy on a guitar at this price point. It's got a rosewood fingerboard. It's got a bone nut. So what I want to do is replace what I think is going to be the most important things on this guitar to make it as best as it can be. So I've got a couple things that I've bought here. So I've got some really cool vintage Grover Rotomatic heads, machine heads here, tuners. So these are authentic vintage ones. I think they're late 60s. I got these off Reverb. I actually got a pretty good deal on these, so I'm pretty happy with what I paid for them. And they're just really cool old tuners. What else have I got? I'm going to replace the electronics with some good pots. I'm going to use cloth wiring, and I'm going to use orange drop capacitors. So I'm going to redo all the electronics. I've also got some vintage hardware that I found on Reverb as well. Here's a vintage 70s tailpiece, and I've also got a vintage Tune-O-Matic bridge here. It's nice and weathered. These are true vintage relics over time. And I've also got the bridge posts and the tailpiece posts that I'm going to replace. And then, to top it all off, I've got a Gibson Greeny bucker set. So I've always wanted to try these pickups, and you know what better guitar to try them on than a Greeny style guitar. And these are the pickups that Gibson are putting in their Greeny reissues. So these are supposed to be quite good pickups. I've also got some dye that I want to use to yellow the binding, because that's another issue with this guitar that I don't like personally, is it's got really stark white binding, which doesn't look right on like a vintage style guitar. So I'm going to try it and dye the binding, maybe mix it with some other darker colors to get that kind of a vintage look. I've never done this before, so this is going to be a learning experience. I've never dyed a guitar's binding before. And then a couple other things I want to do. I'm going to give it a full fret level and a setup so it's playing perfectly. Going to make sure that the truss rod's set properly. Probably going to replace the truss cover just to a blank one. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to gloss up the finish. So, you know, on original Greeny it's a gloss finish. For some reason this is a satin. I think Gibson does a satin version as well. But I'm going to keep the back and the sides and the neck satin because they feel nice. But I'm going to gloss up the top. So I've done a video before where I gloss up a satin finish. I'm going to be doing the same thing here. So I'm going to gloss up the body's top and the headstock, just so it's a nice shiny gloss finish, or as close to one as I can get. And then, you know, we'll put in all the other parts, set it up, and then it's going to go head to head against my R8. Alright, I'm just going to keep this camera here and basically start ripping this thing apart. Everything's got to go. So everything's removed. Here's the husk. And yeah, you can see again there's that nice big thick maple top. And that corresponds to the grain, so it actually is a thick, like flamed maple top, which is crazy on a guitar from TEMU. But we've got our nice fingerboard, and then there's the headstock. So yeah, it's a blank slate now. What I'm going to do, now that I have everything off, is I'm going to go ahead and gloss up the top and the headstock. And I have a video where I do this, where I explain in like greater detail. Basically, I'm using Scratch X and then some polishing finish stuff to make it glossy. It just takes some time and some elbow grease. I ended up putting these posts, I'm going to keep these there. They actually are the same sizes as the vintage ones that I bought. So these can be a real pain to remove sometimes, especially on these offshore models. I don't know what they do, they like epoxy them in or something. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave these there because they do fit with the new ones or the vintage ones that I bought. At this point, I'm just doing a little bit of relicing before I polish it up. So I'm actually just taking a pencil and like really loading it on in some like high traffic areas you'd see on a guitar, and that gives it kind of that dirty, kind of a worn look. These parts were all reliced before I started working on this, like they came from TEMU like that. So I'm just trying to make it look a little bit more authentic by putting, like, you know, some graphite here and here and just kind of areas around the guitar, and then I'm just rubbing that in with a microfiber cloth and some polish. Hopefully that stays when I try to gloss this up to give it a little bit more of a worn in kind of a look. Okay, all done. I really like the way it turned out. If you see it in the light, it's a lot shinier than it was before, a lot more glossy, but it's still kind of dull in a couple areas, just like a vintage guitar would be. And I really like it like that. You can see it's got really nice grain, a lot of movement in the flame. And I put a couple little dings and stuff in there to make it look a little bit more authentically old. But I'm quite happy with the way it turns out. It kind of looks like a VOS finish on reissues, which is how guitars look when they're, you know, old and they've been handled and worn. So yeah, I think it turned out pretty great. And then here's a look at the headstock. Just nice and super shiny. Not satin anymore. So that turned out well too. Alright, so moving on to dyeing the binding. I just want to show you what I'm doing here. I just used some cheap dye that I researched online that could stain plastic. It's supposed to stain nylon and other sorts of plastic. I didn't quite get the color I wanted. This is a golden yellow. I was looking for more like of an amber, kind of a yellowy brown. So I just mixed that up with some coffee. And then I'm using a Q-tip just to stain the binding. And I've done a couple passes so far, and it's already getting nice and creamy looking. A little bit of that ambered over look. It looks way better than it did before with the stark white. So I'm really liking the way this turned out. Again, I'm just dipping it in the dye and just brushing it on the binding and letting it dry, and then darkening it more and more as I want until I'm happy with what it looks like. So very easy to do, and it seems to be working. And here's a look at the binding, all done now. So it turned out great. Just got that nice kind of aged yellow look to it, which is just way better than the stark white it was showing before. So this looks like it's got some age to it, kind of that ambered over nitro that old guitars kind of look like. And that's the same on the side binding there. It's just really makes it look more aged. The stark white was not looking great. But so far, I mean, this thing has come a long way so far already. It just looks a lot more, you know, authentically aged with that kind of a gloss finish. I don't really love these areas here, which were not done by me. But I did put some of the dings in and some of these scratches to make it look like the original Greeny. And I just think it does look way better now than it did before. As luck would have it, these Grovers actually fit great in this headstock. I don't have to ream any holes. They fit in there nice and snug, but not too tight. And the screw holes even line up. So very easy to put these on the headstock. So I'm just going to do that now. And there's our beautiful old set of Grovers. They feel great, and they've got a nice patina to them, which matches the rest of the guitar. And yeah, they just went in no problem. Looks wise, we're getting there. So now I want to go ahead and put in the new bridge, the new tailpiece, And then I'm going to start getting the pots in place and the new switch and the pickups, and I can kind of start wiring everything together soon. So far, okay, so I've moved the lettering from the cover, so it's just blank now, like it's more traditional. I aged it up a bit too, so it looks a little older. And I also use some of that dye on the inlays, so that gives them a little bit more of an aged look, kind of a yellowed over, which works well. I found a Switchcraft switch. I ended up replacing the switch, and I wired it in there. Put the knobs on, put the new potentiometers in there, and I've put the bridge and the tailpiece on. I think I'm going to go ahead and gloss up the back too, because I really like the way the top turned out. So I want to do the same with the back. So yeah, I think I am going to gloss up the back and do a little bit of aging on the back like I did in the front, just so it kind of matches a little bit better. It's kind of a big difference going from back to front now. And there's a look at my pot, potentiometers there, and then we've got all of our switch leads there. So I'm going to go ahead and wire this up with the Greeny buckers, and then put on the new orange drop capacitors, and then I'll test it, make sure it's working, and then I'm going to go ahead and gloss up the back and age it up a bit. So after that, we can go ahead and start setting it up. And I just wanted to unbox these Greeny bucker sets. So these are pretty cool pickups. They're unpotted, a lot like the Gibson Custom Buckers. Just check the prices online. So this set's about $420 Canadian, and the Custom Buckers are about $700 Canadian. So Custom Buckers are still quite a bit more than this set, but this set does have some premium features. They're unpotted, like the Custom Shop set. So this is actually based on Greeny's pickups, which is a 1959 Les Paul. But what's different about this set is the rhythm pickup features a reverse magnet polarity for that signature Greeny sound, so you get that out of phase kind of quacky tone in the middle. They're Alnico 2 magnets. They have asymmetrical coil windings, Alnico 2 magnets, and the magnets are unpolished. So these are supposed to be good pickups, so I'm excited to try them out. Comes with some warranty information, not a specific wiring diagram, just some basic information on the wiring. And here are the pickups. They got the PAF sticker, they see Greeny Bucker, R for rhythm, and then the L is for lead, with a date of 2025. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and wire this up. And here it is all wired up, quite tidy if I do say so myself. The pickup leads are super long. I didn't want to cut them down though in case this is a failed experiment and I hate the guitar and I want to sell the pickups again. So I'm just going to leave those long and tuck them in there. I did replace the output jack to a Switchcraft as well. So yeah, the pickups are all wired in. Now we're just going to test them and make sure everything's working. everything works. All right, the pickups are in. I also glossed up the back, so it kind of matches the front better now. I also did a little bit of aging to it, so I think it looks like a much more convincing relic now. And I did gloss up the back of the headstock. I had to take the tuners off to do it, but I think it just matches a little bit better now. So the only thing that doesn't really match is how clean the pickups are. But I don't really want to relic these pickups. Again, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this guitar yet. If I don't end up liking it, I'll probably take the pickups out again. So I want to preserve them in case I want to sell them again. So those are going to stay the way they are. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a full fret level and setup. I did notice some high frets on here, so I want it to be playing perfectly to give it the best shot at competing with like a custom shop. So I'm going to do an extensive fret level on this, make sure everything's perfect. I'm going to polish it up, set it up, and then we'll check the setup. Okay, this guitar is done. I've finished my fret level crown repolish. I set it up perfectly. I tested it out. It plays great. I set it up the exact same way as my Gibson R8 with the pickups the same distance away from the strings. Everything's similar. And I found this old Gibson case locally that someone was giving away pretty cheap that I bought for this guitar specifically because it kind of fits. So let's have a look at the final product. All right. So just have a look at that top. See how much it moves in the light here. I'll see if I can get an example. But yeah, it's quite an active top. It's got some nice grain. Again, this is a full maple cap on this guitar. And it's got a nice contour on it too, if you look at this, the side profile. So yeah, it looks great. I've glossed up the top now, and it looks a lot better than it did satin. And I've aged it. So it turned out pretty great. It feels like an old guitar if you pick it up. Like it's got that nice kind of VOS style finish that happens on old Gibsons. That's what they're kind of recreating with their VOS finish for the new Gibson reissues. So it feels really good. I guess the only thing that doesn't fit is how clean the pickups are, but I don't want to age them in case I want to sell them down the road. And yeah, the frets are super shiny. Super easy to bend on there. They're super polished. This one has the bone nut. I'm not going to go through every specific specification on this guitar. I have a whole video for that. I'll put the link in the description if you want to watch the video. That video is basically me unboxing this guitar and going through it just as it came from factory. So this is more of a modding and a comparison video. And then let's just flip it around to the back here. And yeah, I would say the aging on the back looks a lot more convincing now rather than the satin finish it had before. And I put some scratches and dings into it too. So it definitely looks more relic, like authentically relic, I would guess. It's not perfect or anything, but and then the neck, I really like this neck. It's a huge chunky 50s neck. It's very similar to my R8. It's just nice and just a nice C chunky neck, and yeah, it's very comfortable for me to play. I got bigger hands. And I glossed up the neck a tiny bit. It still feels nice and smooth. And there's our vintage Grover late 60s Rotomatics. They feel great. They're super tight, so accurate to tune. I love these tuners. And the guitar stayed in tune really well too. And there's our bogus serial number. You can kind of tell on these models, the serial number is usually a dead giveaway because Gibson stamps their serial numbers after the guitar is finished. These ones are like laser cut, so you can see the bare wood and the font's wrong. There's a couple other ways to tell fakes, but this is a huge giveaway. But overall, I think this guitar turned out really well. We've got the new electronics hand wired with nice pots and the teardrop or the orange drop capacitors. and I did plug it in, and it sounds really good actually. Spoiler alert, because I'm going to be doing a full comparison against my R8 right away here. So overall, you know, the project was fairly straightforward. I had a good guitar to start with, and then it was basically just upgrading everything. The glossing up the top, I have a video, I've done that before. That's a relatively straightforward process as well. Aging it, again, I'm not, I don't work in the Murphy custom shop or anything. I just did some basic relicing techniques I kind of picked up over the years, and it serves well for this guitar, for sure. I replaced these knobs with a little bit more accurate looking knobs. We have the vintage hardware from a 70s Gibson that was put on here. It's got a nice patina. It works well. The bridge isn't collapsed or anything. It works very well. We've got the Greeny buckers in there. I got a new switch, which is a Switchcraft. And I actually had to remove the poker chip because there wasn't enough space in the wood. So that's a little bit of a difference from the other Greeny, or the real Greeny. But I don't mind the way it looks. And then we just did a full fret level, recrown, polish, set it up. The guitar is intonated. The bone nut was already well cut, so I didn't have to do anything there. It's a nice bone nut. And the Rotomatic tuners, and yeah, everything else. So this guitar plays and sounds great. It's perfectly set up just like my R8, so we're going to do a head-to-head comparison just to see how these guitars stack up together. So the comparison is basically how an upgraded, you know, $220 TEMU guitar will stack up against a real Gibson Custom Shop, a guitar that's worth like 20 times its price. So yeah, let's go ahead and start. All right, this is what we've all been waiting for. We're gonna see how this upgraded cheap TEMU copy stacks up against a real Gibson Custom Shop. Now, obviously, there's a lot of differences between these guitars, especially, you know, the quality of the wood and how they're made. The Custom Shop nowadays is making the most accurate versions of these reissues they ever have. They're using the same, you know, types of glue and wood and dyes and all that kind of stuff down to a very, very, you know, fine detail level. And this guitar is just not that. The guitars are set up virtually identical. The action's the same on both. The necks are very similar feeling necks. They're both super chunky, just super C-shaped necks. The pickup height is set the same for both of the guitars. Obviously there's different pickups that we're using, but we're just gonna compare them and see how they sound against each other. And again, they play and feel very similar just because I spent a lot of time on the setup of this guitar, whereas this one would have came great from the Custom Shop. I'm plugged into my Marshall DSL 150. For this test. We're just going to use the amp settings for the clean, and then I'm just going to use my overdrive pedal for a little bit more dirt, and I'm going to be using a Strymon Flint for just a little bit of reverb. I'm making up my 412 cabinet, Marshall cabinet with the greenback Celestians with a Sennheiser E609. I'm using an Audio-Technica condenser mic for the room, an AT2020. And we're just going to compare both guitars clean and then with a little bit of dirt. they both sounded great clean. I think that the TEMU Greeny is keeping up to the R8. They both sound really good. It's hard to tell exactly what they sound like recorded, and I'm switching, so it's a little bit difficult. I'm going to hear it back when I edit, but to my ears, both sounded really good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and try it out with a little bit of dirt. final thoughts. So the whole point of this video was to see if we could upgrade my TEMU Greeny guitar to the point where it would kind of compete with my custom shop, my Gibson Custom Shop reissue. Let me start off by saying that my Gibson R8 is my favorite guitar ever. Like, this is my #1 guitar. It's got an amazing neck. The pickups sound great. I even upgraded these pickups to the throwback pickups. So it's got like $900 pickups in there. It's just the pinnacle of every Les Paul that I've ever tried. It's amazing. But that being said, this guitar felt close, fairly close. I mean, definitely punching way above its weight. It sounded really, really good. I think ultimately the custom shop sounded a bit better. It was more clear, more articulate, more open kind of a sound. This one seemed to be a little bit more compressed, I guess. But I love that middle pickup position, that quacky Peter Green sound. Obviously, the other guitar doesn't have that option, so that's specific to the Greeny Bucker pickups. But, I mean, as far as playability and the necks on these guitars feel very, very similar. Just big, chunky, you know, 50s style necks. And, I mean, I could switch back and forth, and it was almost like not a whole lot of difference. Again, I extensively set this one up. I got the fret levels, like the frets are leveled perfectly, super polished. The actions are set the same on both the guitars. So, I mean, in terms of how they're set up, they're very, very similar. So they are very similar to play. But in terms of sound, they both sounded really good for, you know, different reasons. I could see myself being in 2 different moods and preferring one over the other, just depending. I mean, it really did sound great. And let's just figure out the money for a second here. So this guitar was about $200 from TEMU, and then I spent about $700 in upgrades for this guitar. I used some parts that I already had and stuff like that, so I'm not counting that. But I think around the cost for all the parts that I used to upgrade this guitar, maybe around $700-800 Canadian altogether. So I mean, that's one hell of a guitar for that money, for sure. And the custom shop, you know, with the $900 pickups in it, is closer to like $8,000. So, I mean, the custom shop is 10 times more expensive than this guitar. And I mean, there's a reason for that. The custom shop uses, you know, the highest grade woods, and they're making as close to as exact replicas as they ever have of the old reissues, and it's a fantastic guitar. But I guess what I'm trying to say in this video is that, you know, if you buy some nice parts on a decent guitar, like let's say you get a TEMU guitar, or let's say you get an old Epiphone or something like that, and you spend the time to set it up and upgrade it and you know, wire it up with new electronics and that kind of a thing, you can get fantastic results from that. I do think the custom shop guitars are great. I love expensive guitars and I think they're great, but I think you can get like 80 to 90% of the way there with you know, a good bones guitar and with some nice upgrades. And I think this guitar just really turned out great. I mean, it looks great. It's got that nice gloss finish now because we glossed it up and reliced it a little bit better. Some of the relicing that came with the guitar looks kind of bad. Mainly this area and this area, but I kind of blended it to the point where it looks quite a bit better. And like the frets are great. They're super shiny and smooth and just a perfect setup on this guitar. And it glossed up the headstock. I think the back looks a lot better too. It's got some really nice wood grain in the back. I was really surprised by the quality of the wood grains and stuff on this guitar. Like, it's got this is a maple cap. This is a thick maple cap that's flamed. I matched the grain on the end, so they're using like a full flame maple cap for this. And the body, I mean, it looks like nice mahogany too. So I mean, these are crazy guitars. If you want to know more about these individual guitars, I did full reviews on each. So I did a full review on my R8. I did a full review on this TEMU guitar when I first got it, and with all the specs and everything else like that. So I'll put those links in the description. But I guess my final thought is this is a great guitar now, and I would have no problem playing this on stage or out in public, somewhere where I don't want to bring my expensive, you know, R8 in case it gets stolen or dropped or broken. And I can kind of use this comfortably while knowing that it's a great guitar. It plays good, it sounds good, and I don't have to worry about, you know, the high value of it getting wrecked or lost or stolen. But that's going to be it for today. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I know a lot of people don't do that. but that really helps the channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. It really helps the channel too. And I enjoy making these videos, and I want to make more. So thanks again for watching Beckler Guitars and Repair, and I'll have more for you really soon. Thanks a lot.